we're back for another fun Extreme Power Hour podcast where I've got a couple great special guests. One is my sister, Arison Antonucci, with Wild Wisdom. And then I've got a good friend of mine here, Alex Omania. Isn't that awesome? I love that name. Alex is in the house.
Oh, man, yeah.
And so we got a really fun episode where we're leaning into intuition. You know, and we've all got that intuition inside of us, but very few are able to kind of give it a voice. And I know, Arison, with Wild Wisdom, you've been really leaning into your intuition to a whole nother level. And that's why I really wanted to bring you on a guest on this podcast to give us more insight. And I know you had a really fun dream the other night that you were telling me about. Maybe bring that if you're able to.
Sure. Yeah. So, my name is Arison, and I'm the owner of Wild Wisdom Collective and Restorative. And I lean in a lot to my intuition. It's taken some time, a lot of time actually, in the last few years of evolution to open up that third eye, so to speak. I didn't really truly know what that meant, and I didn't even really truly know where it was, to be honest with you. Right? Like right here, right? Like talk about it, but not really like feeling into it and actually knowing and feeling and being connected to the third eye and what that truly looks like and feels like. And so when people come into the store, we talk a lot about the third eye and the chakras, the seven chakras. There's actually more than 7 chakras, right? Yeah. But to keep it simple, we deal with the 7 chakras, one of which is the third eye. And so I lean into that quite a bit with doing vibrational sound and frequency healing and so forth to really tune into your intuition, the third eye, decalcification of the third eye. I actually did bring a tincture with me for the third eye, and it's one of my favorite things.
It was delicious.
Actually,
it's so great, and it pulses your third eye. I tend to overdose a little bit on that. But it's awesome.
Blast it open.
It blast it right open.
Do you
right on
have that tincture?
I
That
do.
You can maybe even show
yeah,
the
I
audience
do
here?
have it. It's somewhere around here. But so in addition, a lot of people come into the store, and feel free to pipe into Alex regarding this, but people come into the store or just in my normal life, and I'm sure most of you can relate, that are having and dealing with a lot of anxiety. Does anyone relate to that?
Oh, God. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think everyone.
If you have kids,
struck.
if you're a mother, if you're a human.
It's called life.
Yeah.
If you're
life.
alive, heart beating, you got anxiety.
Yeah, so anxiety is like a big thing, and people are like, what is this, right? What is anxiety? Oh, here. I'll show you guys this.
Worrying about the future, right? Anxiety.
My third eye tincture, it's called pineal.
And it tastes good.
Tastes really good.
Tastes really
Yeah,
good.
sometimes tinctures don't taste very good. It tastes like dirt. This doesn't taste like dirt.
Yeah.
Tastes good.
Vegetal, herbal nonsense.
And then my other favorite thing is called Blue Lotus. This is really good for anxiety, since we're moving on to the anxiety chat and talking about boundaries, right?
Yeah.
And so a lot of people come into the store looking for ways to explore what they're feeling.
And where's your store located? Just so if somebody's wanting to buy that particular
Yeah,
product or
so
any other product.
Our store is located at 7 South Tracy, downtown Bozeman.
Amazing place.
And that's
Yeah.
in Montana.
It is in Montana.
Because
Sorry
remember,
about
this
that.
show goes around the
Yeah.
world.
Bozeman, Montana. It's beautiful. If you haven't been here, you should come. I'm also a real estate broker, so if you want to buy a house and settle down, you can call me. But so back to boundaries and anxiety. If you guys were to say quickly, what does anxiety feel like? What does it feel like to you guys?
It's a vibration. It's almost like
Yeah, I always feel like my heart is racing, like literally racing forward. Like it's always related to future.
Yeah.
Things you need to do, like thinking too much about the future.
Yeah.
and you're late, so it always feels like you're almost.
Whereas
one
like
step behind.
depression is in the past. So anxiety is like
Moving forward. Right?
it's of the future. It's like you're thinking too much ahead, and it feels like in my chest, like
yeah.
too much energy, like gotta do it,
It literally hurts, right?
Yes.
Like an elephant. I always ask people, does it feel like an elephant's on your chest? Does it feel like you're going to have a heart attack? Does it feel like you could die?
Yeah.
And if the answer is yes, you're having an anxiety attack.
Yeah.
And the first thing is to realize, well, you're not going to die.
Yeah.
Just acknowledging, okay, I'm not going to die.
Yeah.
And I'm feeling something greater than myself. And I think what's really powerful about what Alex said is it's an energy of being not in control.
Yeah.
And thinking so much in the future. And so when you think in the future, I mean, how many of us can control every element of our being? Can you guys control every element?
Yeah. No.
Are we God?
No.
No. We kind of want to be, but not.
Oh, that's a fun conversation.
Yeah. So,
right
I
there.
mean,
I know,
we
yeah,
could,
yeah.
we are all
Yeah.
gods, right?
Genesis 3:22, we're all co-creators.
We are co-creators. So you can create your own reality. Like that's a whole nother episode, right?
You do create your own reality.
You do.
Well, I guess to stay on track where we are right now,
Yeah.
that intuition.
Oh, yes. The intuition.
Let's go to the intuition. I
Yeah.
think when people say intuition, you almost point to your chest,
Yeah.
to your heart.
Yeah.
correct?
It's like here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or you're here.
Yeah. Or sometimes in your gut.
Yeah. Your
too.
gut, your second brain.
And like you had actually asked, like, where do you feel anxiety? And that's important because that question's important because in order to understand what you're going through, you have to actually feel it in your body because your body is like a messenger. It's like it gives you the clues that something in your environment is not in balance, right? And
Yeah.
and then that all plays into, obviously strengthening that muscle of intuition and but how do you get there?
Yeah.
For most people, they don't feel.
They don't feel, or on the flip side, they feel too much, but they don't know what to attribute it to.
How to
Right.
regulate it.
Right. How to regulate it. What is this? I call it the it. At this, when I'm talking to people, I'm like, what is it?
Yeah.
Literally, what is it?
Yeah.
And they oftentimes they'll say, I don't know. I'm hoping you tell me.
Yeah, because they're looking,
Right.
you're not going here inside.
Yes. Yeah. So to your point, like identifying what is it? Well, where is it coming from?
Yeah.
Where do you feel it?
Yeah. Starting to be curious.
Yeah. Right. And opening up the it.
Or like going to your store and getting other people who are really good at helping others identify it or identify the places where it's dense in your body and helping you, guiding you.
Yeah. Moving that.
Yeah.
Well, in your practice and doing breath work, that's what you're doing.
Yeah.
You're moving that energy, that stuckness, we call it,
Yeah.
and moving it through the body so it's not stuck.
Yeah.
So,
you
like, who
make
wants the
space.
elephant on the chest?
Yeah.
Nobody wants to feel that.
Because then you make
So-
space to
Yeah.
understand how to be intuitive.
Yes.
Right.
Which, yes.
And if we're to break it down in layman's terms, what's an emotion? What's an emotion? It is.
Energy and motion.
energy,
Energy is
in
emotion.
Yeah.
So let's say if you have a cut on your arm and it stings really bad, it's got a lot of energy going to it, right? And it's kind of a calling out its name, like, hey, over here, right? And so at certain points, you need to do something with that.
That energy, yeah. And this is where my NLP background gets really
Ooh, let's hear
fun
that.
because when that cut happens,
And it's an emotional cut at that
it
in
is
reference.
Yeah, and a story gets built around it. Say like your mom comes up to you and you're a kid and your mom's like, "Oh, you cut, you're so hurt. Oh my gosh, you're so hurt." And say like, maybe you weren't that hurt. And you got a cut and you felt, like ouch. But then your mom comes up and amplifies the energy of it. And then now you have this story attached to this cut.
Right.
And now every time you get cut in life, you remember the feeling you had when you got cut. And you always go back to that same feeling. And if that energy doesn't move from like the moment it was programmed, then
Ooh, program. That's a good
all
word.
of a sudden throughout life you get the layers of
Yeah.
onions, and then you're an adult and you're like, in like a complicated relationship and somebody leaves you and you get the same feeling that you learned how to get, and it just goes on top of the onion layers, and then your body can't take anymore. And then what happens, like cancer, like tumor, like maybe you fall and break your arm. I don't know, but it's like your body starts to tell you when you don't have any more space.
Because it has emotional scars.
Yeah.
And like you said,
Build up.
traumas will actually build up inside your body. And then it starts calcifying in layman's terms.
Well,
which
it
creates
it
cancer.
manifests
matter.
itself
Becomes
inside
matter.
your body.
So it's in a state of dis-ease, and that's what disease is,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's a ball of energy that's sitting there turning into a tumor, cancer, and everything that you're relating to.
That's why I like the term. I don't like this term when someone says, my emotions matter. Because I'm like, your emotions matter. If you think of matter as like your emotions are turning into matter,
Right.
then you're like, no, my emotions don't matter.
Yeah, they don't matter at all. We don't
Yeah.
need that matter.
Yeah, right? So it's
Yeah,
fascinating.
It is fascinating, and you know the whole disease and sickness, right? And our goes to our medical system and all the different things when we're actually healers.
Yeah.
All of us are healers. We can heal ourselves.
Yeah, we're your own.
We can
healer.
manifest our own reality.
if-
we can do so many different things, can't we?
But like Hindu with hands, right?
Yeah.
This is the positive, this is the negative. So if you have an ouchie, like a kid getting a scar, the mom, or you can take your own hand and put it over that. And what that does, that grounds out the pain.
Yeah.
And so it takes some of that energy and it puts it in a cycle motion. And that's how it starts recuperating. So it's
Yeah.
actually, instead of expelling the energy, you're recycling the energy. It's going around your body through the heart. And then the heart is sending what it needs to by going like that.
Right. So like moving, being able to just move energy and, you know, going from being someone with anxiety, seeking help, like say like they came to you or me and they're seeking help, to learning how to move that energy. And then from that place, you're starting to learn how your body and your nervous system is operating.
Yes.
And once you strengthen that muscle, then you can start paying really close attention to your intuition
Yes.
bodies, you know? And so,
Yeah. A lot of people, I mean, you've all been, well, you talked about programming a little bit. A lot of people have been programmed since the beginning of time to not feel,
yep.
right?
Yeah.
Coming back into that feeling body. What does this feel like to me?
Yeah.
Right. And acknowledging those feelings and emotions that come up or the triggers that happen.
Right.
And not just shoving it down. I always tell people, like, do you feel like a garbage compactor? Do you feel like your stomach is a garbage compactor? And they're
Yeah.
like, yeah. I was like, you need to release that. You need to grind that up and like bring it up and we're going to push it out.
Yeah.
And some people are like, well, I don't want to feel that emotion again. I'm like, well, does it feel good for you now? Do you want to continue feeling that way?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like a crutch.
Great question.
Right. And
get
some
used to
people
the
feel
crutch.
good in the pain. Like
Right.
they don't know what to do without the pain. And I can also speak for that myself. You know, it feels weird when you release it because you're like, it's been like my friend,
Yeah.
right? Like I've just used to feeling that. Right.
Yeah.
And then when it's gone, it's like, whoa. It's like having a baby, you know, when the baby's in you and you're growing it.
No,
And then when it's
I don't know
gone,
that feeling. I do not know that feeling.
it's like the alien left, right? And you're
Yeah.
like, whoa, that feels weird. It's gone, right?
Yeah.
But in a way, it feels good. But in one way, it feels lonely.
Yeah. It's a part of you because it's a part of you that you don't need anymore. And being like, kind of to go back to the analogy of the baby, it's like when that is a moment when the birdie leaves the nest,
Yeah.
you know, into another phase.
Yes.
You know, your nest now becomes your arms or whatever, but like you don't need that. That baby has finished the cycle.
Yes.
And like with emotions, I feel like when someone gets to a point where they are aware of their emotion and how to process and they learn the tool, they get the tools to process, then they don't need it anymore. And I think you could probably agree because you've done so much work. There's times now where things just don't bother you anymore.
I have no,
You know? Yeah.
no bother. Someone will say something that would have normally triggered.
Yeah.
And now I'm just like, that's kind of funny.
Yeah, because you made space
Yeah.
in your being
Yeah.
to now that you have the space and the tools, you know how to hold it. Right? So you're holding space for people now. And that's a totally, I think, elevated way to show up in life and to serve. you
Yeah.
know?
Well, and I think too, just like your elevation, like we're moving through this life in frequency,
Right.
I've become such a frequency nerd.
Yeah, me too. I'm learning.
The
I'm
sounds, the frequency.
I'm like your
everything's
frequency groupie.
Yeah, it's so fun.
We're all in the cymatics together.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the cymatics. I love to
Yeah.
see cymatic plates. It gets me really excited.
me
I'm like,
too.
whoa.
Have you
that's
seen the
what energy-
cymatics app? Did I
You
show
showed
you?
it to me,
Yeah.
and you said you said Jesus and God, or
yeah.
Yeshua and God, or
Yeah.
something, and
Cross.
the beauty that it created.
Yeah, I
this
think
artwork.
It might have made a cross or something even. Like,
It was epic. And
Yeah.
then we said our names, and I was like, wow,
yeah.
that's how it sounds.
Yeah.
It's so beautiful.
It's really cool to bring what you can't see into your visual perspective,
yeah.
right? Like it's really cool way to demonstrate how to create matter.
Yeah.
How we
Well,
bend and-
we're all artists.
Yeah.
You know, like we've kind of put artists into like this own, here's you're an artist, here's you're a musician, here's you're a teacher.
Yeah, yeah.
You're a healer.
Yeah.
Right. But we're all of those things.
Yeah.
And you can elevate them at any time. You can pull them in, but art is everywhere.
It's like
Frequency is everywhere.
It's like
I mean,
expression. I
Yeah.
like expression because we all can, and then you make art with your expression.
yeah.
And because no two people make the same art
Yeah.
and express.
Well, we're all walks of art. There's no one like us.
Yeah.
Right. There's not anything that's the same.
But then when we all get
Any
together and we're able to, create together, especially when we're in the same frequency, like you and I, we've cleared a lot of stuff, a lot of trauma out in our lives, and I'm showing up in my life in a way where I feel like I have a lot of space and I'm very discerning with it. And then I met somebody else like you who is the same way, and then another person. And when all of us are on that same frequency, we're creating together. It's like,
Well, when you talk about building a tribe, right? I never
Yeah.
really fully knew what that meant. Find your tribe.
yeah,
But I feel like as I've shifted my frequency into the person that I feel better with,
Yeah.
myself, I'm actually attracting people that are similar in minded like myself. So we can have conversations like this. They're in the same resonance or they're similar frequency. And if they're not and they're a little bit below, you can also raise them if they're feeling that.
or
and
if they're asking you to,
to power up too.
yeah, I love that.
Isn't that fun? Because you're
Yeah.
like, oh, well, I want to be a part of that.
Yeah.
So
That's kind of how I feel like that a lot with a lot of the people I've met through Fit for Service, Aubrey Marcus's program. A lot of people, we're all doing it with each other.
yeah, trying
And-
to elevate each other.
Yeah, and we're not bogged down with all the, a lot of people have worked on their anxiety and worked on all these things, and they've made a lot of space to come together. And the creating that's happening right now is like,
It's on point, right?
oh, it's really
Yeah,
cool to
it's
see people,
pretty amazing.
and they're serving. Everybody's serving a cause.
So if we were to come back down to, you guys were talking about dealing with your emotions and getting through that. I think there's probably a lot of people that are actually listening going, okay, I got some emotions. How
How do I release that?
Let's call it. They're
I'm
a
just
step
kind of getting
above,
hot over here
Yeah.
talking about this. But,
right? So how
yeah.
did that path look, and how do you process that? Because isn't that what you're talking about? You're more
Yes.
of going through the motions of processing it.
Oh yeah.
Well, that's kind of a loaded question. There's lots of different modalities in which to do that. I used to think meditation was a joke. I never wanted to be trapped in my brain for long enough. Like I could never go to a yoga class because of like, who wants to sit in this head for an hour? Not me. So I was like, that's why I didn't go to yoga. Because like, how can I don't want to be in my thoughts for an hour. Right. And now I look forward to those thoughts, but they've also slowed down.
Yeah.
I've learned how to slow the thoughts. I've been more aware in my body, more present and grounded in my body. But that's taken time. It's taken a lot of work to get to that point. And now when you meditate, it's a whole different meditation. It's like, it's bliss.
Right.
You can get to the bliss state where you go from black in the third eye to white in the third eye.
So do you do that by yourself? Or like I said, somebody that's wanting to get where
Yes.
you are? Where does it start? If somebody that's suffering right now hearing
Yeah.
this podcast,
Yeah.
what would they do? Do they seek help, or do they mentally do it themselves? How does that look?
Well, there's so many different ways in which to do that. I think first is gravitating toward whatever modality works well for you. I mean, it's not just people just think meditation, I got to do yoga, right? It's just the easiest one to go to. But if you did just start with doing different poses, and I tell people 5 minutes a day, if you can just sit still for 5 minutes, and I say a sunning spot because everyone needs vitamin D, but sit wherever you feel called to sit, right? That's quiet.
Take your shoes off.
Take your
ground.
shoes off, right?
Get
Take your shoes
outside.
off.
Get
Be
outside,
comfortable, right? In a
that I felt really helped me was to understand and meet myself exactly where I am. Meet yourself exactly where you are. And the breath is free and it's there and it's always there. And, you know, I think that if I were to have a lot of anxiety in my life right now, knowing what I know, the very first thing I would do, and this is what has really helped me and put me on a path towards being a breathwork facilitator, is to just sit down and breathe. You know, and there's all kinds of techniques, like box breathing is the easiest one. So it's like you could even just start with a 3 count. 3 in, 3 hold, 3 out, 3 hold, 3 in. And you just, once you start doing that, you get out of your head and into your body. The goal is to get out of your story and feel in your body, because we've even changed the way that we talk about feelings. Feelings are now words: sad, happy, joyful. Feelings aren't being taught as like to kids, especially, like, oh, are you feeling sad? Okay, but where? Like teaching them that your feeling is something you physically feel in your body, and that energy of your story has to go somewhere, and if you don't allow that to move, then you're just a walking like bundle of
nerves,
all kinds of things, and I also hear this, parents too, like, oh, you're feeling sad. Are you feeling sad? And then it just stops. Mom loves you. Right. It's like, okay, so now you're teaching someone, which, and that's a beautiful thing to say to your kids, but you're teaching them that when they get a feeling, they go to their mom to get it resolved. And then you do that so long throughout a person's life, then they become an adult, and then they get married, and then they have all these feelings, and they're like, I have no idea what to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah. It is interesting, well, to acknowledge like where you're feeling it, like, well, where does it hurt you?
Yeah.
And not just saying mommy loves you, right? But like, what just happened?
Yeah.
Let's talk about that, and in a safe place to do that. And I feel like that's where a lot of people get kind of stuck, because they don't feel in a safe place, or it's not going to be acknowledged, so therefore it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And then you just keep shoving it down. So I think it's just, it's layers. It's not as easy as just saying, sit there and meditate for 5 minutes. Yeah. But I think meditation or breath work or moving your body, some people say just going on a walk in nature helps to get them grounded. And that could be your meditation.
Yeah. And
that's fine.
And if you are stuck in your head and you can't get out, one really amazing way is through curiosity.
Yeah.
Because when you're curious, you can't be stuck in a feeling of stuckness. You can't. The minute you start being curious, you're telling yourself, like, I'm not going to sit here like this. I want to know how to move. So curiosity is another way, like words and questions in your mind are another way to move energy,
And moving your body, not just in your mind, but physically moving your body. There's dance classes that you can do, that are really targeted in different areas. Yeah. I think someone does a class in town called chakra dance.
Oh, yes, I did. I saw that.
It's like a date, like I think for singles in Bozeman or something, but it's a chakra dance. And I thought that's genius, but it shouldn't just be for singles. Like we should just really bring this out and like bring this into our world.
More movement.
The movement and the drums, which is why I love to use harmonic drums, just like you. Yeah. Like feeling the emotion and allowing it to be surfaced. Yeah. And feeling in a safe place to be supported in that. And you don't have to be with anyone to do it. It could just be yourself, but allowing yourself giving yourself permission to feel it.
Because a lot of people like to spiritual bypass too. Like, oh, it'll be fine. I'm okay.
Yeah.
You know, like it just had to be that way or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
But, how about just, it's okay to say like, I feel fucking rotten right now.
Yeah.
And I just want to go home and punch a pillow.
Yeah. Yeah. I need a
know?
padded room right now. Yes.
Yeah.
That's like a thing for sure.
Right.
You should
So-
do that.
Right.
Build
So,
a
yeah.
padded room next to your
And
podcaster.
And so if we were to come back to that leaning on intuition.
Oh, yes. Keep going.
So it sounds like a lot of people might say is, I don't know if I'm confident in my own abilities to lean on the intuition.
That's a good
and
point.
There's a lot of confusion. And I know there's a lot of things that people can do. We can say something as, raise your kundalini. And they're like, what's a kundalini? Right? Let's organize your chakras. What are chakras? Is there seven chakras? Is there 218 chakras?
Right.
In
Yes. Where do
reality,
I start with that?
there's macro and micro.
Yeah.
And so as above, so below applies in everything.
Yeah.
So macro as we're having this physical communication, but internally we have that voice.
Yeah.
And that intuition that we're in reference to, is it that internal voice that's within our brain, our heart, or just that we talk to at night before we go to bed?
Oh, yeah. That's all loaded.
I mean,
That's
it's,
loaded.
it's
Yeah,
different
for
for
sure.
everybody.
Have you ever
I think
thought when
it's
you're
different for
Yeah.
everyone?
when you're reading a book, who's reading?
Right. The awareness.
You're not saying anything.
Yeah.
Is it that guy that's reading the book?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
the eyes are just a vessel to
Yeah.
bring the knowledge?
Who's observing the observer?
Oh, that's another thing.
Right.
Yeah. The guy in the black shadow.
You just get, you can
Seen
go
that.
Into, you can go into
That's-
levels.
That goes real deep. So there's lots of different ways that we can take that.
Yeah.
Just that alone. But I just think with intuition, it's all about trust.
Yeah.
Like trusting yourself. And that's another thing that
But you have
is-
to know thyself. Know
Yes.
thyself to trust
Yes.
thyself.
Yeah.
If
Well-
you don't trust yourself, then what? You're going to ask your neighbor, you're going to ask a friend.
yes,
and some
you're
of those are the people
outsourcing.
Yeah.
are self-reflecting on
Yeah.
a lot of their friends. And they're almost like, friend, tell me what to do because I don't trust
Yeah.
myself.
Well, they're constantly needing validation. Ever
Right.
been around those people that they have to ask their like 50 friends before they feel validated in the decision they're going to make?
Yeah.
I notice this a lot when I'm selling houses. Well, I need to ask my mom or I need to ask my neighbor and like 10 other people before they can just make a decision. When in it's as simple as, does the house feel good?
Yeah.
Does it feel right?
Yeah.
Is it in the location that you like? Being autonomous in the decision
Yeah.
and being confident enough to make the decision, right? And you can apply that across the board with anything.
Yeah. Having the power within yourself to trust that what you feel is right. And that feeling can show up in many places, like we said before, like your gut, your heart, your mind, but like that. And that's the problem I have, I think, with our culture is people are not generally, I would say, do not feel like they can make those decisions and go within. They're always outsourcing everything, even all their problems, like you did this to me and it's because of all these things I can't do this. And
The blaming, the
yeah.
blame game.
we've just been programmed away from our inner sovereignty, and I think that's a big part of the work that we do is to guide people back into sovereignty of the self. And there's just so many different ways you can do it, right? Like, but I think once you have found that, then you start strengthening those intuitive muscles, and there's so many modalities and things to learn. I can't even keep up, I'm just like,
Yeah, there's a million different ways to strengthen. But I think the prime, to strengthen the third eye, right, and your intuition, your
Where's the third eye? A lot of people would be like, where's that?
here. And you
Okay.
know how people are like, well, I want to feel the third eye. And how do I feel that? And I tell people to do this, a very simple thing. Remember those 3D books that, I don't know, they came out when I was in high school. Do you remember those where you cross your eyes?
oh yeah, you have to kind of like,
And then you kind of
change your
zoom out.
perspective.
You like go in and then you go out and then you're like, oh. And then the whole, from the flat picture, the 2D becomes 3D. Right? So it's the same, applying the same principle and just just going in with your, like actually literally crossing your eyes, sitting when you're meditating, because this will take you out of the thinking brain too, because it's a nice exercise to get your brain to stop because you're focusing on your third eye. Yeah. So you take your eyes, you just close them, right? And then you focus on the center of just above your nose, like in between your eyebrows. And then once you do that, and you're probably commenting to yourself internally, well, this sucks. I don't know how to do this. It hurts my eyes, right? But the more you do it, the more you flex that muscle, the easier it becomes. And it's just like training your third eye. The more you do it, the easier it's going to become. And then you flex the muscle, and then it starts to pulse. It starts to react. It's a physical knowing. It's a physical popping, or it's a knowingness. You and I were talking about knowingness earlier, like trusting the knowingness and not questioning yourself so much. And then, so anyway, during meditation, just really focusing on the brow, and then going in. And then what I see, and this takes practice, is how I align myself is I see a white light. And as soon as I see the white channel line come in, then everything clears and my brain just goes, and then it's like wiping a chalkboard clean. And then I can open the channel to whatever that is.
Right.
But that takes practice. Like I've been working on that for a long time. But I think just as a meditative state to get your into yourself.
If I was to put step 1, close your eyes.
Yes.
Right. Step 2 would be if you can cross your eyes.
Yes.
Right.
Focus
cross
inward.
your eyes.
Yep.
And look. Right. You look kind of in and up. And you almost have to force your eyes. And at least for me, what happens is my eyes will start to vibrate.
Yeah.
They start doing this.
They kind of hurt for a bit when you do that.
It kind of hurts for a second. And if this is your first time, like anyone in the audience, it's going to you're using a muscle you've never used. So don't expect perfect results in the first time.
Yeah.
Right? It's like a baby just being born and it's going to start running like a horse. No, it's not going to happen.
It's wishful thinking.
So it's going to take a little bit of while. So step 1 is obviously you're going to start learning on how your body works. Just as we were talking about, if you're reading a book, who's actually reading the book? Because you're actually not verbally and you're not hearing it. You're actually reading it through your eyes.
Yes.
So you're training your brain on a visual spectrum to process inward. And so right now, by closing your eyes, you're going in.
Yes.
You're going in.
Yes.
And a lot of people are scared about going in.
Yes.
And they're scared of the darkness.
Yeah.
And they might what kind of monsters they might find. But at the other side, it might be everything they thought it wouldn't be. They thought hellfire and it's going to be calming water and a nice beach on Hawaii that you would go for, right?
Yeah, totally.
Well, and also,
And all of those things are possible.
yeah.
So,
and also the dark absorbs the light.
yes.
So really, if you want to find the light, you go into the dark.
Yes, absolutely.
And then can I lend something to the third eye meditation? That it's a different approach, but I learned this because I used to do the same thing. I would find this here, and that's how I would kind of I would even touch my forehead, and then I would be like, okay, I can feel it. But Dr. Robert Gilbert had a really cool meditation so it's called the Tunnel of Brahma, right? So you imagine.
If anyone doesn't know what Brahma means, it's creator.
The creator.
Yeah.
Yep. Hindu.
Earth creator, yeah.
Yep. And so you imagine a tunnel of light going through your forehead this way, and then another one coming down from the top of your crown in through the center of your being, and this one this way. And where those 2 points intersect inside would be where the pineal gland is,
Yes.
which is the third eye, which is what you're focusing on. And it's really interesting because then you look at all the symbology in Egyptology, and you always see the eye of Horus is shaped like a pineal gland. And but yeah, that's how I've learned to do it recently in the past couple of years because of he has a show on Gaia. It's really good.
I love the Gaia channel.
Sacred
It's
geometry.
my favorite thing.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't even need regular TV anymore.
I know.
Just go to the Gaia channel.
I know, right? Yeah.
You guys don't want to see what I watch on the Gaia channel. It's hours of things. really interesting and fun. But I think that's a really great way to think about it, like the beams of light. And it's like what it looks like. It's like, it's
And then
light.
It's a
Yeah.
cross.
Yeah.
And then there's some symbology there too.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So, I mean, those are some basic ways to go in and to really strengthen the third eye. But I think it's trusting yourself is like a whole nother thing. Like you could just do a whole podcast or weekend training on just trusting yourself, trusting others, but really trusting yourself first and foremost before you can then start to trust others. Because when you trust yourself, then you can you kind of branch out and know, okay, well, this is who I can trust. This feels good. This, who in that physical plane can I trust?
So you almost have to forgive yourself.
Yeah.
All about forgiveness.
And the first thing would almost be forgiving others for their trespasses, for they not know what they do. Mm-hmm. And then the next one would be looking inside to say, okay, I forgave them. Now it's time for me to forgive myself.
Yeah. That's how you get to forgiving yourself.
Yeah.
You have to, And that's what's
simple principles.
It's super simple. Like the biggest, so when doing medium work and so forth, the biggest things that hold people back from moving in the lower dimensional realm is all about forgiveness. They haven't forgiven themselves. They haven't forgiven others. And that holds you in that state. And I call it a purgatory state. I don't like to use that term because I establish it with being Catholic or something. But the purgatory state, most people can relate to that. It's like being held in your own little private hell. Yeah. It's not necessarily that God's judging you. It's not that Jesus is judging you. It's not all these other people judging you. You're the judge of yourself. Yeah. And that's what that purgatory is that they're held in. So when you pass on, say if you were angry at somebody, right? I didn't forgive my mom, or I didn't forgive my dad, and you died in a car accident tomorrow. And you didn't forgive whoever trespassed you. That's the energy in which you die. And you may still have to regulate that afterwards.
Yeah.
Right. And so I always tell people like this anger and frustration, if you walked out of my store and you tripped and fell on the steps and you died, what kind of energy are you hanging on to right now? Do you want to take that with you?
Yeah.
No. Usually the answer is no.
Yeah.
So let's work through that, because if you die tomorrow, you're not going to take this with you. Are you going to come back and relive this again so you can learn that lesson?
Yeah.
No, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
This sucks.
It's like in order to make that space, in order to come to that place where you trust yourself, you have to clear out some cobwebs and make some space in your life. Because some of those traumatic stories are in the way. Totally. They're in the way from you. They're designed. That's the thing about stories. Mm-hmm. A lot of times when they're not, useful, they're designed to keep you from yourself. Mm-hmm. And it's a really, once I figured that out, now I feel like when I hear people and their stories and all the stuff, and it's like they're just these beautiful beings of light in front of me, and I'm like,
can you get out of the story now?
I know. I'm like, can we change? Can we take that avatar off?
Put on a new suit.
Get your superhero one on.
Yes. Yeah. Do you want to be a divine goddess instead? That sounds way more fun to me.
Way more
fun.
I know.
Yeah. Let's step into that, what you want to be, not what you were, right?
Exactly.
Quit living in past tense. Let's move forward into present, into future, the future you. What does future you look like?
Yeah.
I mean, if I were to say to you, Alex, what does your future you look like? What does that look like to you?
What's your intuition say?
Right?
That's
my future?
And then bringing it back to
your intuition.
The focus is the intuition.
That's a great question.
Because we're spiritual beings having a physical expression and experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. What does the intuitive tell me about
your true essence of being?
Yeah. I mean, when I lean into my intuition, first and foremost, it always says you're safe and you are loved. And no matter what, any of the stories that happens in my life, the things that hurt me, no matter what, that's the foundation. You are safe. You are loved. You matter. You are enough. Mm-hmm. And so when I think about my future and I lean into it with that foundation, I'm open to the changes that will take place but I see that I will only grow from this point on into someone who is of service to the cause, which for me is to help raise the vibration and frequency of the collective consciousness, to be a part of that movement, you know, and that's where I see my future. And I'm not sure like what that exactly looks like. And part of me is like, that's really none of my business anyway. You know, like that stuff gets figured out along the way. I have a purpose, you know, and I know I need money. I know in this, at least in this time,
This plane of existence.
yeah. I know I need money, and I know I need to value myself. So somehow in the future, you know, I'll, with contributing and valuing myself, and I would like to have enough money so I will have enough money so that I can contribute on a really large scale.
Yeah.
Big.
Benefit others.
Yes. To help the cause.
Right.
You know, and because it really comes down to finding people that are ready and willing to do some of that like cobweb clearing, and then get, you know, that frequency risen in them, like help them do that.
Yeah.
I mean, they have to do it, but I know enough now. I've done enough trainings that I can help people get the stories out of the way.
Right. To move forward to their best selves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about you?
For myself, I feel like I know my biggest purpose is to help elevate people, to let their true gifts shine through, and allowing people that space, or whether it's holding space or creating the spaces. And I feel like that's actually one of my gifts with real estate and staging homes and stuff. It's creating a space for a new life for people to come into, but clearing out the cobwebs like you talked about. You know, we have cobwebs. Everyone has cobwebs.
Yeah.
Whether in the physical plane, in this, you know, plane up on the ceiling, right? Like there could be cobwebs, right? It's all an analogy.
Yeah. It's all
So
metaphors.
just making space and clearing the space for people and creating spaces. I found that I really love to create spaces for people to do their magic, I call it.
Good at it.
I want to help people do their magic. I know that I have magic within me. I've learned that. I've explored it. I'm seeing that, and I don't even have to work that hard on it. And that's what's magical about the experience, is like you don't really have to work that hard on things anymore. It's like it just kind of effervescently flows. But we had to do the work to get to the point where your body's like reconnecting with what you've done likely many, many times before.
Yeah.
And being able to emanate that freely, where it just flows. It's like, here you're talking about money and like different things. Like it's just flowing. You don't have to work that hard at it. And Alden was talking about earlier, like a knowingness or like a telepathy, right? And the third eye, and the idea of the third eye. Well, it's not an idea. It's actually a thing.
Yeah. It's
But
real.
telepathically,
Magic is real.
being able to communicate.
Yeah.
Like, do
We
you
do
ever
it all the
communicate
time.
with your dog? Right?
Yeah.
You know what your dog needs. Your dog's communicating. Dogs are like the perfect example. Even a cat. I don't really love cats, but cats, you know, they communicate with you and you don't have to speak any words.
We do it all the time.
Do you
All
know,
the time.
It's like
a fun nugget about cats
What?
is when they purr the frequency that you need.
oh, no wonder.
They
No
purr. And,
Ooh, that's
and-
good.
And they're attracted to that of where you need it.
Yeah.
So you're like, why are you on my face? Why are you on my throat?
yeah.
Why? And they'll put their head right there, and they'll.
I
and
mean,
they do the cymatic, same with cancer. So they're now using.
I think I like cats. I think I like. Do I need to go get a cat? I think I might have to get a
Cats
cat.
for
the Egyptians were.
The Egyptians?
Totally.
Then there's the feline race.
in
yeah,
cancer
felines.
patients. So that's what the new studies they've been doing. They've been linking that to it's 111 hertz.
Whoa.
So that purr is 111 hertz.
111,
That's
baby.
That's amazing.
Angel
Yeah.
number.
And
Yeah,
they didn't
I
say
love that.
anything about the hertz. They're just like 111. I'm like, of course it is.
Yeah.
Right?
Why wouldn't it be any other?
It's
Yeah.
1221 right now. Just some fun
it
numbers
is.
there.
Just saying.
Just
yeah.
saying.
So
Cats. Awareness is what comes to my mind after everything that we've talked about. Is raising your awareness. Where you are right now and where you think you are. Actually, you might be higher than what you really think you are. There's some people that are they think they're way higher and they're really not.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you're a better person than you think you are.
Yeah.
You're your worst enemy.
Worst judge.
Yeah.
You're your worst judge,
You're the worst
right?
judge.
You're never going to look good enough. Those pants are never going to fit right. You know, those shirts, and nobody else doesn't even notice.
Yeah.
Right? And you're sitting there. And so there's a good analogy I just heard. That's about if we were going in the theater of life, right? And I just passed away and I walk into a theater to watch my life. I'm going to see it through my eyes, right? Almost like literally through my eyes. And now I'm going to walk into, let's say my wife, right? And so I'm going to walk into her theater from her eyes. And let's suppose that we were at the same dinner table. We were at the same family event. She's going to see that as a perspective completely different than as I saw it. I might be like, wow, that was an amazing wedding and the whole 9 yards. She's seeing it through her eyes, complete opposite. Have you ever heard people like that where it's just like, wow, did we even go to the same event?
I know.
Right?
Yes.
Well, in NLP, you know,
quite a bit,
Right.
actually. Yeah.
there's a really cool thing that we call perceptual positioning. And so it's the ability of you, of the person, to see things from the eyes of others. So, for instance, like, because we all see things so completely different, when I'm having an experience and I'm with you and we're talking, I'm talking to you from my personal perspective, right? And then you are talking to me in the same way. Well, I have the ability to, because I know you, I have the ability to be like curious. What's it like for Alden right now?
Right.
And I get out of mine and then I go into a second position and I observe from there. And then you have the ability to go into a third position, which would be, I'm not me, and I'm experiencing me and you together from my perspective. Then you go into the meta position, which is now I'm out of my map of the world and I'm out of your map of the world and I'm looking at both from a meta position. And that reminded me a little bit of perceptual positioning, what you were saying.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, it's almost like we're all playing chess.
Yeah.
It's black and white. And then we're in here, we're playing the game. And then you got somebody else, a third party, and they're like, oh, dude, he's doing that move. That looks horrible.
Yeah.
You know, but we're in the game and we're like,
Yeah.
right? And this
Yeah.
third person's like, dude, if you just did that, checkmate, done.
Well, and
You know?
that's the thing. Like you can do that. You can get out of your head and into a position of being curious about what it's like for the two people.
Right.
You know, and I think when someone has the ability to do that, it really just widens their perspective, which reminded me of you were talking about when you were like, there were these posters you could look at as a kid, the 3D posters.
Yeah.
Another technique that I think is really cool reminded me of that, and it kind of leans into perspectives. And you can do this with people, and it creates a very focused listening environment for yourself. But when you're listening to somebody, you look at them, but instead you look at everything around them and you fix your focus to everything in the room, but you look at them. And when you do that, you kind of go into a hypnotic state and you draw someone else in also. And you can have a very focused listening environment between two people. It's really interesting.
Yeah.
You know,
Kind of doing that with you right now.
yeah, you just
I was
kinda-
going to say I was doing
Like
that
my
too.
eyes are
I was
just like,
too.
"Brr."
Yeah, right. And that this is like how hypnotists work, you know. But because you want to influence the environment. So I think when somebody's talking to me, like if I'm in a session with someone and they're really heightened alert, you know, their nervous systems, I try to do that. I try to widen because then I start to hear things when I do that. Like I'm doing it with you right now. I start to hear things and feel things and see even their breathing. in a different perspective, and I get more information that way. You know, because it's like you're training your unconscious mind and your conscious mind to dance together.
Yeah.
Because the unconscious mind's picking everything up.
It's
Right.
almost like what I
It's-
was
yeah.
referring to before. You're reading with your eyes and you're not seeing anything.
Yeah.
And so the best influential state you have is when they're in the mind and heart coherence, right?
Yeah.
To where you're reading the book at the same speed you're speaking. And I know we've probably been in those public situations where we're like, blah, 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 blah. You know,
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
Like
Don't
the-
even know what the hell
the
you're saying.
nervous.
your eyes are sitting there reading the page and your
You have
mouth's
no
like,
idea what you're
blah,
reading.
blah, blah. And then everything, like you're saying, the surroundings almost go weird. It's like you're going in some kind of like diabetic shock or something.
Oh,
and
God,
the
I've
earth's
had that.
having the shake,
Yeah.
you know. And I just had to give a talk most recently, and it was the same thing where I actually didn't want to hyper focus on anything because then it would just go weird. And I found that if I just was myself, let's
Yes.
put it that way, whatever myself may be,
Yeah.
I wasn't hyper focused on, am I doing a good job? How's my hair?
Yeah.
Even though I don't really have any hair. But you're going to go through those different eagle states, they're called. You know, if we want to get back into the psychology, you're going through 8 different eagle states. And I'm like, right now I need my lion. And my lion's taking a nap. And the lamb's right here just going,
Oh, man.
you know, and I'm talking to hundreds of people,
Yeah.
right? And so they're all just staring at me with the intent of like, what's he going to say next?
I know, right?
And I'm judging myself, and I'm like, I don't even know what I'm going to say next. But it's going to be about X, Y, Z. And when it was all said and done, everyone's like, wow, that was an amazing talk.
Yeah.
And I was
Yeah.
like, well, thank goodness, because my inner me was just like, dude, you
Yeah.
failed. Go home.
Yeah,
Do it
Kind of
again.
going back to what you're saying, how we're our own our biggest
Totally.
critics, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Well, and again, it goes back to trusting yourself that like you actually do know the answers. Like
Yeah.
a lot of us know the answers. Like if
Yeah.
you actually stopped and thought about like, why am I feeling sick today? If you actually sat with it for a minute,
Yeah.
you probably know exactly where you got sick
Oh,
or
yeah.
how you got sick or why I'm feeling sick, right?
Yeah.
Let's bring up entrepreneurism, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know exactly what you need to do. Yeah. Yeah, I do know what I need to
Yeah.
do to be successful.
Just
But
need a
you know
little-
what? That's hard. And my mom said I'm bad at what I do. Well, why are you doing it?
Yeah.
You know, let's get over that hurdle to launch. Let's be that rocket ship.
Yeah.
What valve do we need to turn? I don't want to turn that valve. That one hurts. But
Yeah.
That's the one we need
But
to
that's
turn.
the one you got to focus on.
I mean,
That's
I
when you
just
gotta
went
move
through all that.
Yeah.
I'm like, you're telling my life story
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah.
Just
you know.
summed it up in 10 seconds.
I mean, because I feel like for me, that trust piece, it comes in different like phases,
Yeah.
and it's a level up every time.
Yeah.
Level up every time, you know.
It's a
and
wave.
it is, and like in entrepreneurship, as I closed one business recently, that was like my identity was
Yeah.
everything about me. I couldn't figure out how to even be. Who the heck am I?
Yeah. Who is Alex without the lotus pad?
Yeah, who
Like,
am
that's-
I? Like, I'm not worthy, you know? But just, I had to get a lot of trauma out of the way. You were part of it. Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah. Thanks for the journey.
You're
Thanks for coming
replacing-
along. It's fun, right? Now we get to do this.
I know,
right? It's
I
really
know.
fun.
Yeah.
Replace the old trauma with new trauma.
Yeah.
Oh, no. But making
No new
space.
traumas. We're
I-
just gonna,
You have to make
I look at
space.
it this way, you know, the simple concept: a door closes, a couple windows open. So you got to look for that reasoning why. You know, it goes back to that Chinese proverbs where an old man had a son. His son fell off a horse, broke his leg, right? And then moments later, or weeks later, the military came in and they were recruiting all young men in between 18 and 35, and he was 20-year-old man. Well, guess what? He was going to go to war. He had a broken leg.
Yeah.
Oh, thank goodness. And now all the townspeople going to him, thank goodness, you know, your son had a broken leg.
Yeah.
Because all of the other boys had to leave, right? And so
Perspective.
because that broken leg, he was able to help his dad and the family farm in the whole 9 yards. So it's that old Chinese proverbs of, you know, be careful what you wish for.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if something does happen, think of the good.
Yeah.
You know,
What can I learn
what
from
can I
this?
learn?
Yeah.
It's just money.
Lesson.
I like using that concept. It's just money.
It's
if
just money.
if
It
that's
comes
all
and
that happened
goes.
and you can pay for
Thing.
problems to go away, if you could buy happiness, how much would you pay for it?
Oh, I can't.
Oh, it's hard to
Right.
remember on that.
Right. Would you
one.
not just sacrifice everything?
Everything?
I would.
for
Yeah.
happiness.
I wouldn't need to pay for that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then also, but trusting to know when you need to end something.
Yes,
That's a big one.
and being okay with it, and just like allowing it to be, and not questioning. Like, I'm really sad about that.
Or selling
friendship.
your business or closing
Or
up your
closing your
business
business,
because
yeah.
you attached your identity. Let's call that ego as well.
Oh,
You're like,
huge.
my ego of shutting my own business, my identity
Yeah,
was my
I'm
business.
a failure.
Yeah.
failure.
What are
All
they
the
going to
things-
say?
all the
And,
things
and
we
you know
tell
the funny thing
ourselves.
is, everyone else, all the other business owners are like, look at her. She can finally get a normal job. I'm stuck over here
Every time
in
I see her-
miserable Ownerville.
Every time I see a restaurant owner, they're like, "Oh God, I'm so jealous."
Yeah,
And I'm
right?
like, I'm not.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. It's
Well,
funny.
I guess to kind of sum up this podcast, do you guys have any other words?
Well,
or
I do
thoughts for the
have
audience?
I do have something that kind of goes back to what we initially came in to talk about. There was this dream last night, and I had this dream. I went to bed, and so I grew up LDS and Mormon. Some of you guys know I'm Mormon, but we always say end a prayer saying in the name of Jesus Christ, Amen. Right, and so and going through all of this, transformation, I've really had to question like a lot of things. And so I asked before I went to bed last night, and he said, what do I need to call you? Jesus, Yeshua, Yahweh, all these names associated with Jesus. I was like, what do I need to do? Right. So that's how I went to bed. And I asked for, you ask and you shall receive. And nights are always really adventurous at my house, especially when I'm by myself. So
I want to have a sleepover.
I know. I invite
gonna
people
put a
to
camera in her
come to my
room.
house and we'll have a sleepover, but no one takes me up on it. But anyway, someone should sometime so Yeshua has come before, and that's my name for him. And so I don't usually call him Jesus or, any other name. I just call him Yeshua. And so anyway, I was lucid dreaming, and then between, I don't know all the technical theta, like the brain waves where you're like conscious, you're like, well, I'm here in my bed, but I'm hearing voices, right? Or I'm seeing things, you're like, but I'm fully present, right? That in between brain is the theta state.
Theta state.
Yeah.
Theta state. And so this happens quite a bit, but some are more exciting than others. And last night happened to be very exciting. And
You didn't even call me.
Just I wanted to stay in it. You got to keep your
Just
keep your
kidding.
channel open, right?
I got a voice memo this
We
morning.
need something to talk about.
I said Alex and my friend Mari, like, I always send her like voice messages, like, "Oh, this is a good story." Like, I share this, right? They're like Dear Diary. So anyway, Yeshua had said, "Well, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter. It's your intention in which you're speaking, right? So you can just pray. It's like meditation. You can just pray in meditation, like just as a prayer to." The universe or source or whomever you associate with. It could be a prayer to Jesus. It could be a prayer to your mom, right? It could be a prayer to whomever. It's the energy that you're putting out that's associated in that frequency. And then he also shared with me like his mortal being and how he came here as a mortal being to live this life just like us, right? And so he's not different. He's not separate from. He is, right? And a lot of people put him up on this pedestal, right? And that's kind of got polluted with religion and all this other stuff, right? And that isn't his goal. It was never his goal. Like, he just is an ascended being, much of like what we can be. Some people are walking on this planet, ascended beings that have a very high level of intelligence and are light beings and so forth. We don't need to get into all the technical stuff concerning that. But, he went into details concerning his life. And also he is, because I own a rock store, he probably thought that this would be really fun. He's actually quite funny. Whenever I've had interactions, it's been really quite magical. He's like, you should start using the sunstone. And the sunstone is actually one. And I sell stones, right? But I don't always remember all the energies associated with the sunstone. Well, he also related to the sunstone as one of his stones of choice because he's also a son. He's the son in a physical sense. He's the son of God, just like we're daughters of God, right? And then also he's the sun, like the radiant sun that we're familiar with that helps to grow plants. And we need the sun. It gives us vitamin D. Like, he's the light in the dark, right? Mm-hmm. And so he came at a point in time when it was necessary. He needed light during that time. Mm-hmm. He was it. And so he doesn't need to be worshiped in how, Christians worship. Like that isn't the goal. It's the energy, the Christ consciousness surrounding that.
Yeah.
And just like Buddha or like, tons of other masters, Moses, all these guys, right? They have an energy associated. And so when you start to play with frequency and you're residing in a higher level of frequency, it's like, I always tell people, it's like turning in a radio. Like, where's my dial today? Am I feeling low tone or am I feeling high tone, right? Think of it like music, like boom, 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 root chakra. Like if I'm trying to pull something from the depths of someone's soul, I'm going to be playing a shamanic drum, or I'm playing a lower tone on my sound bowls, or stomping a little bit differently and pulling it up or like raising it up. Or I'm going to go high. I don't sing necessarily, but like a high tone is going to bring in a different frequency and a different vibe.
You almost feel that.
Yeah, you feel it in your
when
chakras.
somebody's singing and you have a let's call it a masculine voice that's going very low.
Yeah, like how does that make you feel?
And
Boom, boom,
then
boom, boom.
then you get a singer that hits those high pitches and you're just like,
Like a
it feels
violin.
like cloud nine, right?
Yeah.
Ninth heaven.
And what emotion does that evoke? It may be different from one day to a different day, right? Depends on the whole, the setting, the place, like how you are.
How you resonate.
How you
with
resonate.
that frequency.
Yeah. And last night I just happened to want to tap into a very high resonance. But I went to bed feeling
Are you
pretty
sure we got
high.
enough time for this or what? This sounds like a good one.
Yeah.
Or should we do a part 2?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, if you want to, frequency is a whole different ballgame. But just to finish out the story, and then we can talk about frequency for a long time.
We'll go into part 2.
Anyway, so it flowed in. So the sunstone is actually a sunstone is to clear chakras, remove energies. Is a healing stone. And so he's just much like I am the sun. That I utilize this tool. And so people think that crystals and all this other stuff are like woo-woo. And I'm like, yeah, it's a bunch of bullshit. Like this is like legit stuff. Like this was created to be utilized.
If we were to wrap in pineal gland and crystals,
Yeah.
inside the pineal gland are quasi crystals.
Crystals, yeah.
Rhomboid?
Yeah.
Yeah, all these little crystals that are receiving what? Light.
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 Yes.
Okay, so that's maybe a
Prisms.
whole nother.
Just think of prisms. Like how do prisms work? It's it's all
And light is information.
yeah, like
And radios are made from crystals.
yeah. So your pineal gland is like a satellite, or
It's like your antenna.
it's your antenna to the world.
And if it's calcified
yeah,
from too much fluoride, just kidding.
well, no, not kidding
Any
at
of
all.
the ides, chloride,
Yeah.
fluoride,
Yeah.
all the ides.
If
Yeah.
it's calcified, it keeps you away from yourself.
Yeah.
It's really wild.
It kind of dumbs you down, almost. I call it the zombie syndrome. Like
Yeah. And breath work is a great way to break up those crystals.
bring them to light, kind of move them around. When I'm in the sound bowl room, if you guys haven't come down, I have what they call a crystal triangle, and so people go underneath a crystal triangle, and I relate it to like pyramids because I have to dumb things down. I guess it's not dumbing things down; it's just making so it's more relatable. But within the crystal pyramid, it's raising from your base, just like how a pyramid, it's broader base, right, and then it goes up through the peak. So it's shifting that energy in such a way that it's pulling from the ground and going up through your crown. So it's aligning of the chakras, much like how pyramids built. They were built out of a lot of the insides of the pyramids are built out of material called hematite, which is very electric. And there's a reason because they're connecting with the ground to the higher
they were
realms.
just like frequency devices to open portals.
Yes.
Really. That's all
I've
the
never been there, but we have to go in this
going.
lifetime.
Yeah,
Because
Egypt.
people say when you go in there and you touch certain ones, you can feel this energetic boost from them. And it's because of the materials that they're made from.
I dream of going to Egypt with Robert Edward Grant.
Oh, let's do that. Let's manifest.
Call
that.
me.
He probably leads tours there. I know he does that. It's probably very expensive.
So after I got done chatting with Yeshua, who else came in? Ra, right? Ra is another God, but he said that he showed me how it came in. And it was like through a different vessel of light, almost like it wasn't like the same God. It was like he was like a different God. It didn't have the same energy necessarily.
Was it
as
like a different
Jesus.
frequency?
It was a different frequency. It was. It felt a different way, but similar. Like because they came in on the similar like pattern, like it felt like they were carrying a similar energy. I felt like Christ was a little bit more of innocence. Jesus was like an innocent, more lovey. And then one was Ra was a little bit more like a little bit more dominant.
King.
King. And it didn't come in the same plane like how we know, like, he came out of, Mary, right? It was like he came down from like this. I'm going to go with aliens, okay? I don't know. I don't really know fully what I was saying, but a different being that came here and was like a ruler. It was like of the sun as well. So in the sun god. So I'm not an expert in this. This just happened. So I'm just really trying to feel this out and explore it more. But of the sun, he too was of the sun. And here to create, he was a creator, much similar to like a god or another deity, to create and do and create life. And he also said another thing, that there's a stone that he would use for healing. And it was called a golden healer. And I've known that stone for a while, just being as, what you use when you're working with people. It works with all the chakras and helping to align and so forth. It's a very powerful stone. And I was like, oh, that's super fascinating. It actually has the same or similar color to sunstone too, but it's more crystalline. Mm. And so I just thought that was really like super awesome, and just leaving more room to explore. I find that the more you know, the more you find out you don't know.
Yeah.
Right. So it just leaves more things to like question and to like think about, and
rabbit holes.
Yeah.
Rabbit holes upon rabbit
but it's
holes.
also fun.
Oh,
Have you
it's so
noticed
fun.
since like being like kind of more awakened and not just part of like a news channel, like our news channel, like and not watching any of the news. We get our news from different sources.
Yeah.
How much more fun it is. And when I'm talking about different sources, it's like from your here, the third eye,
So this taps into almost like a matrix or a unified field.
Yeah.
Where the learning, you're actually remembering
Yes.
everything that's actually already there. Yeah. You're just more or less, I think of it as a computer. You're taking the mouse and you're like, you know what? Yeah. I want to go click on this folder. And then the folder opens. You're like, oh my gosh, I know nothing.
Yeah, you
the more
totally
you learn,
nothing.
the less you know. And we're talking about phonetics, cymatic frequencies. Our eyes process roughly around 60 frames a second. Well, it's less, around 40 frames a second. So a TV, it flashes at 60 frames a second. So they're literally pictures. 60 of them in 1 second, and our eyes are only allowed programmed to process 40. So have you ever seen in Matrix where he starts moving and then he starts seeing the bullet and he does the,
he goes backwards.
Call it the Matrix dance, right?
Yeah.
He goes backwards, right?
Yeah.
What is he doing? He's controlling that oscillation of time, right? And so that's like that pineal gland, and you're fine tuning it, just like a fine tuning a radio where you're hearing something, but you're getting a little bit of static, and you're now bringing it to the 1,000 millionth hertz, just like on a cell phone, and you dial right into it. In the Matrix, that's what he was alluding to.
Yeah.
Is he was part of one now with a unified field where it can now be controlled, as a man thinketh, so he is. So he's actually doing that dance where the bullet's going by, and what's it showing when that bullet goes by? The cymatic rhythm of the air molecules as it goes by.
Yeah. That was
And
so
he
cool.
can almost stop. Remember, in the very end of the movie, he puts his hand out. He stops the bullets and lets them fall. Right. And so when we're talking about that resonating frequency, you can almost feel it right now.
Yeah.
Because truth cleaveth to truth, intelligence cleaveth unto intelligence. So when you hear it, it opens that file, and it's got cobwebs on it, right? You were talking about everything's a web.
Yep.
I think about it, if you uncover the world full of webs, every emotion we feel or think is throwing another web up there.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, it's kind of like how the brain works, right? You make like gangs of neurons.
Yeah.
Right. Neuroplasticity.
Yeah, that's
Aren't they
cool.
called
Amazing.
ganglias?
Gang.
Isn't there like technical term ganglia?
Yeah.
Is that interesting?
Ganglia. Yeah.
Yeah.
Neuro-
Gangs of
gang-
people. Ganglia.
I know. Isn't that the words?
Yeah, the words.
Which I always love pupil too, because pupil is student. And your pupils are your students.
Oh,
No,
yeah.
totally.
Oh, yeah. That's a good one.
But I was thinking too about the Matrix thing. It's like, once I think, because he realizes that there is no such thing as time. There's only different densities in consciousness,
Expressions.
right? And he can now maneuver through the densities of consciousness. And I just find that so fascinating. There's no such thing as time.
I know.
Right.
Time is infinite, right?
It's infinite.
It's so,
So
crazy.
if we go back down to that simple concept of our eyes are processing 40 frames per second, we're now calculating time within a cycle, right? So everything's got this cycle.
Interesting.
And so at the same time, if you can control the cycle, you can do what at the same time? You can go back.
Yeah.
You can go forward. And our vessels, our bodies, our avatars, they're vessels for what? Remember when we were talking about reading and your mouth's not moving, what's reading? What's really reading? You know, who's that when you're sleeping there at night and you're like, I got laundry to do. I got this to do. I've got that to do. Who are you talking with? Who are you talking with? And that should be your best friend. And sometimes we think that person's our worst enemy.
Yeah.
We're like, hey, you stop feeling that emotion. You in there, it.
Or
remember?
like when
Yeah,
people talk to themselves and that, like, God, I'm an idiot. You know, and like,
Right.
don't say
that because you're going to damage it.
Yes.
You're going to damage him,
yes.
her, whatever,
Yeah.
you know?
I know, and it's like when you understand these things, Arison and I were talking about this the other day, and you just sound like you're going crazy because you're walking around all day talking to yourself.
Right. You're like, hey, how are you doing?
so
I'm doing
funny.
good. I'm doing good.
Yeah,
you know?
totally fine. Yeah, not so good, but okay.
Or
Yeah.
just also, or it could be like even, you know, like, why am I affected by this situation? Like, these are conversations I will have out
Right.
loud. Why am I affected by this situation? You know, oh, where do I feel it in my body? Oh, here. When was the last time I felt that? When was the first time I felt that?
Right.
Oh, when I was 4. Oh, yeah, when my mom did this thing. And then I'll do a process on myself and I'll go back and I'll be like, Mom, thank you for teaching me. You know, and I'm just sitting
Right.
there going like,
You're
Yeah.
doing a mindscape on yourself. You're hypnotizing the inner it inside
the
yourself.
inner it.
And timeline. I'm doing a timeline therapy process, which I love that. So I'm not supposed to call it timeline therapy, timeline coaching. I don't even know, but where, you know, you just use your imagination to go back and change the story because it's not even real anymore.
Yeah, it's so past tense. Like, let's
Yeah.
move through that.
But that's
Yeah.
what's so beautiful about the imagination, right? Like
Right.
you can use that. That's where there's no such thing as time.
Yeah.
You want to go back and change something? Let's do it.
So we're going to leave that for the next episode. But to sum this one up, if somebody did want to go into that inner tuition we're talking about, to lean on, the definition of crazy is keep repeating what you're doing and you're expecting different results.
Yeah.
So if you
Insanity.
keep doing it, okay. So here's Joe Dispenza. Everyone knows Joe Dispenza, right?
Yeah, I love it.
Internal mantras, happy, healthy, wealthy. Simple concepts, positive affirmations, happy, healthy, wealthy.
I am
happy, healthy,
statements.
and so at that point, that, like you said, I am statements resonates from the root chakra,
Yeah.
and the root chakra resonates up through
Yes.
the kundalini, right?
Yeah.
And so through positive affirmations, can we then present through our eyes, colors start seeing different. Like
Yes.
everything starts to change, just tweaked a little bit, like it's
Yeah.
going through a different filter.
Yeah.
And so if you're right-handed, brush your teeth left-handed. That's the first thing you do tonight is you brush your teeth left-handed.
Oh, that's a good one.
Everything
Probably
that
go all
you
over my
were
face
doing
like that.
before with your right hand,
Strengthen your brain.
strengthen the other side. If
Yeah.
you're left-handed, use your right. If you're right, use your left. And you're going to see these little minute, it's like moving a cargo ship. They don't turn on a dime.
Yeah.
And Baltimore shows
I mean,
that.
unless.
But, yeah, unless, but that's a different episode.
Yeah.
And so you're moving at a half a degree each time. But if your evident goal is a long-term goal, 5-10 years from here, if you move a half a degree, you're almost doing 360 degrees at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
That's neuroplasticity stuff too, like rewiring the brain.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
if it ain't working, why are you still doing it?
Yeah.
If
That's a
it-
great
it-
question.
If you're still driving the car you don't like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Right? If you're with a
something you
person that
like.
you're just not jiving, it's you, him, both, or whatever. Something got to give.
Some people are just really stubborn. I was for a long time because I stayed in the restaurant,
Right.
you know, and I was miserable,
Right.
Yeah.
But
But I bet if you go back in time, there was something that shifted you into action.
So we're going to leave that next episode.
Yeah.
So this is Alden Antonucci. Thanks, Arison and Alex, for coming on
Yeah,
the podcast.
yeah, it's fun.
And please come back all the time. I mean, we're great conversations and lots of laughs. So
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for
All right.
listening.
Yeah.
Alden
Yes.
Antonucci,
Wild
Extreme
Wisdom.
Power Hour podcast.
Oh,
Stay
yeah.
tuned
Wild
for the
Wisdom
next one.
Productions, baby.
That's right. Coming soon.
Thank you.
Yeah. That was